Okay. So welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming to the Employer Panel, Technology, Innovation, and Design. I want to begin today by respectfully acknowledging the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Coquitlam, Kekwat, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen peoples on whose traditional territories our three Simon Fraser campuses reside. I also want to acknowledge the traditional territories our speakers and audience currently reside on. My name is Deanne Esdale. I'm one of the moderators today. I'm a career educator at SFU, where I'm lucky to help people create and tell their stories. I would also like to introduce Sage Testini, who is my co-moderator today. Hello to Sage. And
hello, everybody.
So he's handling some stuff behind the scenes, and we'll be handling your questions in the Q&A.
Yes, I'll be watching for questions as they come in. You may hear my voice pop in now and then, but for most of the part, I'll be in the background. So thanks for the introduction, Deanne. And I'm from SFU Work Integrated Learning, by the way, for those wondering.
I have another co-moderator, Christine Barnett, who can also say hello.
Hello, I'm from the SFU BD School of Business, the Career Management Center, Associate Director for the Employer Engagement Team. That was a mouthful. And I'm here to watch that Sage watches the chat or the Q&A. So I'm Sage's backup.
We're so backed up. We're doing great. Thanks, guys. On behalf of SFU, I have the pleasure of welcoming you to our 5th Employer Panel for 2020. So we have been doing this. We've seen entrepreneurship, health sector, marketing and communications, and the financial sector. And so this is our last one for this year. And it's been a series that's been dedicated to bringing together diverse speakers from a variety of sectors, people who are shaping our working world, people who can inspire career pathways, and ways to make the most of your degree. Thank you to our group today, all alumni from CIT and BD, for generously sharing their time. So I'll get to them very, very soon. I just have a couple more announcements to make. I do encourage the audience to join our Q&A and upvote on questions you would like us to ask the panelists. We will curate from that for the second half of our session today. And the session is being recorded and will be added to the other sessions on the Career and Volunteer Services YouTube. So if you missed it today, well, you're here, you can't miss it, but if you know somebody who missed it today or would like to watch again to catch the amazing answers that people might give, you can watch it again. So I would also like to acknowledge Alumni, who's one of our partners in this, SFU Alumni. The Alumni Office hosts several events and socials all year. You may have been at their wine tasting webinar last week. To see what's coming up, check the SFU Alumni website. And we're really excited about today's panel. So, you know, these are all folks who are working at the intersections of technology, innovation, and design across games, media architecture, HR, and software. We'll be asking what kinds of opportunities were available that shaped their career, what the biggest changes in the sectors might be today, what are the impacts around work from home and COVID, and what might students and new grads need to know about hiring practices at your companies. We have an hour and a half today, and we will, as I say, start with our audience and then move into our Q&A. If you'd like to apply to co-op and learn more about careers, the moderators will pop some websites into the Q&A there, and because we will be talking about all things career and mentioning co-op as well. So it may be something to do for the future. So welcome to our panelists. I'm going to start with hello, Mr. Zaheen Somani, Vice President, Business Development at Ensemble Systems. Hello.
Hey, Deanne.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming. So Ensemble works to deliver video streaming applications across a variety of platforms for lots of leading brands, including CBS, All Access, CBC Sports, Fox Nation, MTV, Comedy Central, and Stars. Prior to joining Ensemble in 2010, Zaheen worked in user experience design for various technology companies, including Sage and Research in Motion. So welcome to Zaheen. Lots of experience, lots of really cool stuff to speak to today.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deanne.
From Safe Software, we have an HR generalist, our HR guru, Ms. Samantha. She is passionate about building connections and emphasizing the human part of human resources. She's gained diverse experiences working in post-secondary, professional services, and high-tech agencies, and has done lots around onboarding, recruitment, payroll, and employee relations. Hello to Samantha.
Hello, hello.
Welcome. Next, I have Amrit. He is an experienced designer working with EA. Hello.
Hey, Deanne.
Nice to see you. Previously, he has worked on some amazing titles like FIFA and UFC, and has been with the NHL franchise for the last 5 years. An avid gamer who grew up playing these games, he is kind of loving his job where he gets to be part of creating them now as part of his career. And I'm sure many share your dream. So he also comes from the CET background and is growing a UX team now at EA and being part of design culture and UX within sports. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I have Jin Fan with us, who is the founder and chief marketing officer of ClearLED. Hi, Jin.
Hi, Deanne.
Jin's dedicated to pioneering the development of world-class artistic technology-based displays. She is a flourishing business leader, and she has lots of experience at the intersection of creative communication, interactive technology, computer science, and product design. She's worked at Cirque du Soleil, Nine West, IBM, SAP, Air Canada, Aritzia, with many different collaborators. And she is so interested in creating ways to use her talents to make the world a better place. So welcome to Jin. Yay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So over to you. We want to hear from you. So I'm going to start this question with Zaheen. Can you describe your career path while in school and after graduation? Were there any particular opportunities that were really special that you were able to take advantage of that made a big impact for you?
Sure. Yeah, I think for me, through school, like a lot of different folks, I worked at different restaurants and things like that to get through school. And then once I was probably in about third year, let me rewind a little bit. When I started at SFU in the CET program, Tech BC had just kind of gotten out. And so SFU was just coming in as a bigger school and a bigger organization. And I think I started seeing signs about co-op. And so in about third year, I applied for co-op. And I got an opportunity to be, I guess, probably one of the first, if not the first student from CET to go to RIM and do a 2-term co-op there, 8 months out in Ontario. And that really changed everything for me. It gave me an opportunity to really understand what user experience and interaction design was, to understand that within that field that there's so many different jobs that somebody can have. You can be a visual designer, you can be a usability analyst, and it just gives you that real world experience that definitely helped. From there, I came back, finished up at SFU, and then I didn't want to move back to Ontario, so I looked at opportunities locally. And again, usability and interaction design and user experience design was just growing at the time, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of mold my career from that point on to kind of be what I needed it to be or what I wanted it to be. So there was parts of user experience that I enjoyed more than other parts, and I could explore those parts. The entire industry in that instance was in an infancy stage, and so it gave me an opportunity to kind of get in there early. As time progressed, once I got to Ensemble, I got an opportunity to kind of build my own team from scratch, and then also explore different parts of the software world. I've worked in product management, in digital strategy. Eventually I got to the point where I managed all customer relations around our media and entertainment business, and I just took over kind of that wing of the business. And so now that's where I'm at. And it was all just, finding your own path and kind of forging ahead and deciding, picking and choosing the things that you really enjoy and working on those and following those.
How did you know it was time to start your own business?
Well, it wasn't necessarily starting my own business. So what it is I run so Ensemble Systems we're an enterprise software shop. That's how we started in 1995. I currently run the media and entertainment side of that business. And so probably about 8 years ago became about half of our business. And so when I joined Ensemble, it wasn't really something we were exploring, but there was an opportunity there. We started working with Microsoft on their Xbox platform. And that's kind of how we eventually just got into it. And from there, building relationships and exploring further relationships from those hardware manufacturers really helped kind of push us forward into that direction. And now, in essence, it's about 65% of our business now. And so it's been a solid opportunity for us.
Very cool. Now, all of you are SFU alumni, as we've mentioned, and you mentioned, Zaheen, that you got your start in co-op. And I believe all of you took advantage of the co-op program at SFU. So let's talk about that a little bit. This one's for you, Amrit. What would you say to students about making the most of a co-op placement?
Yeah, I think it's something when you're a student, there's a lot of time spent on classes and focusing on schoolwork, and I think co-op often it's like in the back of your mind, you're like, I think I should do it. It's going to be helpful, and I think those who venture out and try it out, you kind of figure out how valuable it is, and it's as important as classes, I'd say. I think you kind of get to build that connection first and foremost, but I think also it kind of helps you discover a little bit about yourself, kind of how would you adapt to the working world. I think the journey is not always as smooth as you want it to go. I think an example for myself was my first ever application for a co-op ended up getting accepted and going through. But very much down to the last minute, it was they didn't have funding for the co-op program, so ended up falling through, and I ended up applying to, you go through a lot, hundreds and hundreds, but my first co-op ended up actually being with the CEAT program way back like 2014 now, but it was a title that wanting to be in design, but getting the opportunity to work on my communication skills. I think the position was communication and strategic engagement. Lovely title, but I got to work with our own faculty, our own professors, help run programs within CEAT, which was kind of you kind of learn how things are run, and you learn how to build up your communication skills, get to kind of bring your own skill set to the table, and then from there I ended up doing my next co-op term with EA, which is what helped me land where I am today. So I think that connection part, and also just not knowing, I think without that kind of opportunity to go through the program and have that accelerated path to connect with employers, even if it's for an interview, I think that's kind of you very rarely get to connect with people working in different places. And I think going through all those interviews and seeing how how I can make myself better at those opportunities paid off, because at the end, when it came down to one of the last couple of interviews I was doing with EA, I ended up working out, and still around here. So I think it's something that if you're on the fence about it, I think definitely go for it and reach out to whoever the team is and the coordinators and Stephanie and Sage and stuff, because I think it's something that it's tough in the beginning, but once you get going and you start seeing how many companies are using co-op programs to build that talent pool, it's something that's you look back and reflect and say that was a great opportunity.
Thank you. What about getting a perspective from the other side? So Sam, you do hiring, and I know you went through co-op in your own experience, and that was positive for you also. Not all students can fit the model for whatever reason. It doesn't fit for absolutely everybody, and we know that. What might you say to students or grads who may not have come through co-op or might not have that opportunity when it comes to hiring and gaining skills to still be impressive for an employer?
Yeah, definitely. I think that this is one thing, that I've always mentioned to students, whether that be in virtual career fairs or through coffee chats, is it's all about showcasing the best of your abilities, not necessarily whether you've had co-op experiences or not. But a handful of pieces of advice that I would impart on to students and new graduates alike is to truly work on just personal development, building your own portfolio and really allowing your work, and in this case, design work, to speak of your experiences and what you've learned in school and how you can apply it in a real world scenario or with an employer. So having, let's say, like a nice website designed to showcase your experiences and projects. Or on the flip side of co-op, I think one of the most important pieces for me in my undergraduate experience at BD was getting involved in extracurriculars, not only for the opportunity to actually practice some of my business acumen and skills within the context of an extracurricular student club, but also being able to build my network. Because I think that post-graduation and even with school, without a core network of people who I've worked closely with, who were able to vouch for me and speak for my experiences to then kind of take and carry me through into my professional experiences, I wouldn't have been in the place that I'm in currently, and I owe a lot to the people that I've met with. So one piece of advice to students, new graduates alike, is to be proactive, be courageous, reach out to your contacts, warm contacts, even for connections, to have casual chats. It doesn't have to be in order to just find a job. They could purely be informational, just so that you're, again, building relationships, and that could also be an opportunity to get your foot in the door, to really not be afraid to ask for help.
Great advice. Yeah. Jen, a question for you, bringing you in here. So how have things changed for you working from home? I mean, many of us are now working and studying from home. Some tips that you might share for somebody who is starting off remotely?
Yeah, I have a team of like different partners all over different places, and now even the people who work in our Vancouver office are all working from home. I think the most important part is the communication. I think for advice on anyone who just starting a new position and then had to work remotely, is to proactively stay the communication with your direct reports. It's really important. Like say right now, I have set daily catch-up meetings with several of my direct reports, like people who report to me, and then also daily catch up with like a certain time with my my partner in the States. And then also for anyone who's, you know, especially working in a creative role, it's quite challenging, I think, because as designers, we're very used to working in a very collaborative environment, like in meeting rooms, and use whiteboards and tools like sticky notes and things like that. So I would encourage to just try to find a way to replace a tool to replace that, and then so you still have that kind of collaborative process going. So say we're using Trello, and for instance like that, or we still use Zoom to screen share. And then I would recommend for anyone who's also like needed to communicate, like I think it's really easy. One mistake I would say, like this is also something that I tell my teams to show your progress, because we're not in one office anymore. You know, like it's easy for me to check and then look at the screen on other people's like desktop when we're in the same office. But now we're using like shared file system, so that once a while like my team member would show me like what progress they're at. So it's not necessarily a finished like a outcome for the client yet, but it's something that we can continue looking on, so everybody work more efficiently that way. These are things that we're constantly improving these days. I think it's important for anyone who start working as a remote position. that's even more important because you don't even know your colleagues yet. You don't know your direct report. It's very important to keep that kind of close, proactive communication.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah. Well, we've heard so far, take chances, have courage, learn to communicate well. So that's great. Let's dig a little deeper into your sector. So let's talk a bit about what's going on in the technology and design industry. Zaheen, I'll come back to you. What kinds of innovations or shifts have you noticed that are happening in the industry over the last number of years?
I think specifically one thing that I've noticed is that our industry here locally has grown exponentially. So you'll see in Vancouver, startups are coming up left, right, and center. Opportunities are there. Larger companies are coming here now and setting up not just small development shops, but large development centers and investing here significantly. When it's not cheap, you know, from a real estate perspective and whatnot, speaks volumes as to the skill set, the talent pool, and just the ability that we have here and what we have in front of us. I think that's been one of the biggest things that I've noticed specifically. And that challenges things like hiring, but it also challenges retention, but it also helps grow, you know, the entire industry here and the community. I think, you know, folks that I've had the pleasure of working with have then, you know, moved on to Amazon and then Microsoft and now Apple here all within Vancouver. And, you know, 5-7 years ago, you couldn't have imagined something like that without having to leave our city. So I think that's probably one of the biggest shifts in the technology space that I've noticed.
Thanks for that. Back to you, Jen. What have you noticed that's been more particular to your field?
I've, you know, I started my career also in the UX background at IBM, but now my industry is in the audiovisual industry. So I think the big shift, especially now after COVID, I think there will be a big trend of blending the online and the offline experience. So, you know, like for example, we worked on a lot of retail environments, and then it was already a big trend of how do you bridge your offline retail storefront type of marketing with your online marketing for a brand. And then it's going to be more and more of that. And then also how to, like in terms of experience design perspective, blending the boundary of digital versus physical space, and then like immersive space. So that's a big thing. And also moving to the next layer, which is making things more interactive. So digital experience or user experience design is no longer just refined in the like on your phone or your desktop or laptop, that type of interface anymore. It's more extended to a bigger space overall. So that is definitely the biggest trend. And I think students coming up like need to have that kind of broader vision towards user experience.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, Zaheen, all this growth that you've seen, what would you say that that's done for what kinds of skills are needed and what kinds of skills are in really high demand? Can you speak to that?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, was it Jen or Zaheen? I didn't hear what you said. Deanne?
Oh, go ahead. So I'm coming back to Zaheen, but I'll come back to you again, Jim. Zaheen, there's been all this growth in your industry. What are some of the skills that are in high demand? Like Jen was sort of speaking to what students need to know, that thinking about more of an interactive space and a bigger space. What are you seeing that's really in demand in your industry now for skills?
I would say that, you know, the soft skills, the importance of them, the communication has significantly changed. from a design perspective, it's as important to be able to speak to your designs and effectively sell your designs as it is to be a good designer. I would say that balance has significantly shifted over the last 3 to 5 years. It used to kind of be that, if you were a good designer, you could get away with, not having as strong communication skills. But I think now the need to be able to speak to those designs and articulate your ideas in a manner that captivates folks is important and is continuing to be more important. And that's not just design. I think that's even in the development space. We're seeing that as well, for folks who want to be tech leads and architects and things like that, the ability to be able to communicate across various teams, organizations, companies, and industries is very, very important. So I'd say the importance of soft skills has skyrocketed. And now with us being at home, I think the need to communicate is obviously, everyone here has alluded to and spoken to the fact of keeping in touch and using the digital means to check in with folks and show progress and be evident and be there. It just keeps growing, and I think that's what I would say is probably the biggest thing I've noticed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, being an artist, you still need to learn how to write the artist statement and sell it and move it along, right? Yeah, right.
Most definitely. Yeah.
Jen, you have an entrepreneurial side to you. What about for those who might be listening, if they are thinking about entering the industry that way? Can you speak about your experience and the entrepreneurial mindset and anything that helped you?
Sure. I think I've always been interested in the business side of things, and even during my SFU years. So during SFU, I actually towards my like 4th year, I did an honors degree to look into like design thinking in the business sense. So I did some more extra studies and research on the business side of design methodology used in the business world, which is pretty big now. Like a lot of business school even teach about the designer mindset or the design methodology for company innovation. That being said, I think also broaden experience. I know this is something you want at one point of life to start your own business. I think it needs a lot of preparation. I purposely kind of planned my career to have more experience of working in all kind of different companies. I started off working for very large companies like SAP or IBM, but then I also worked for some medium-sized companies and I was fortunate enough that I was volunteering for Venture Connection during I was still like a 2nd or 3rd year in school, but I was able to help like some of the entrepreneurs at that time during Venture Connection to learn what it's like to be a startup. And I remember helping a startup company, and they helped only 5 people. So it was quite different than my co-op experience. Like it's such a big corporation, everybody has a very clear role to play, but startup is like everybody's wearing multiple hats. So I think it's that kind of broader experience and then also finding out your niche, what you're really good at. And then also, I think no matter what you do or what kind of company you start, you would always need a team. So I think it's important to build up your professional network, whether or not like during school, it's actually as if you're a CIAT resource, it's great. Like I always find inspirations or people that might be able to help me like throughout the way. And then also outside your professional network, if you really wanted to start, like all kind of skill sets is necessary, right? Like you cannot do everything by yourself. So developing that professional network is also quite important.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk a bit about what the context is of today. So the pandemic world that we're in and the challenges and opportunities that may have impacted different workplaces. Sam, can you speak to what's happening in your sector and organization right now with regard to this time?
Yeah, definitely. So I think like most of us or all of us on the call today is that we've all pivoted since mid-March to a remote work from home environment. And of course, this has posed both, both pros and cons on either end of the spectrum for all employees who have the flexibility to be able to work from home. So in the context of safe software and the tech industry that I find myself working in, the opportunities for remote working have certainly offered a lot more flexibility with an emphasis on, for some, if they're able to set those personal boundaries for themselves of work-life balance. We've been finding a lot of staff have been taking advantage of the pandemic in a way where, we've proven as an organization we have the ability to shift to virtual environments. And so this is allowing our team to be able to relocate themselves physically to places, let's say, in more like the BC interior area. We have some folks who have relocated to other provinces now that they understand they can still remain employed with our organization, but have the opportunity to perhaps go closer to where family is or be relocated in another location altogether. So we've been finding that, while our staff are able to distribute themselves across Canada, it also gives rise for an opportunity for us as an organization to access talent from across the nation as well, like with the shift to remote working, and now our organization considering that we can have a hybrid type of working agreement with our staff where they can come and work in the office a few days a week. It gives the opportunity for freeing up the design of our even workspace altogether. What's going to work in the future? This disruption has really caused a lot of employers to pause and reflect on what the future of work and the physical workspace environment will look like, whether that's going to be a need for having physical office spaces or more hoteling spaces. But, with this also comes the challenge, the flip side. The cons with remote working is that, in Vancouver, there's a lot of young people, perhaps they're working and living alone. I've noticed there's a greater sense of isolation for some, especially with the restrictions of not being able to go out and have social gatherings. There's more of an emphasis on, mental health resources and what our organization's doing now to support their staff through these challenging times, whether that be creating more of a virtual community, more online socials and gatherings to at least provide an opportunity for team members to tune in or to join calls and have conversation with others about it. I think one of the challenges that we've been facing is really getting folks to opt in, because as much as you can provide, infinite number of resources for people to take advantage of, it does take that individual's own discretion to sign up, to click attend, much like all of you today for this panel. You had a choice to attend or not, but you're all here listening to what each of us have to share about the industry, and just getting involved is that first step in, creating that sense of online community, which I think we're all craving right now.
Thank you. Yeah, it's many challenges and many opportunities. Yeah. Well, people have shown themselves to be resilient and innovative. Yeah. What's happening at EA? You guys have some interesting, I know you have some interesting expansion of your teams across the globe. Tell us the story from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to touch on what Samantha was saying, I think the isolation part, it's something that I think we've had to adjust, and it's taken time for everyone to adjust. But I think in terms of, on the challenges side, being in the design group and design team, it's something that Jen mentioned as well, is you want to be collaborative, you want to be hands-on, where in the same space, you want to be using sticky notes and whiteboarding, and that's kind of how you encourage each other to think bigger and solve problems together. And I think that's been one of the kind of the pieces what we've kind of gone over the last couple months to figure out. And there's tools out there like digital whiteboarding tools and Trello and all these like Miro, and there's definitely tools that help support that. I think we've started to discover those more. In terms of opportunities, I think you touched on it, which was being able to connect with our team globally. I think that's something that we it's kind of difficult to do in the office space where you're in a meeting room with everyone that you work with day to day, but then you got team members who are globally, in other areas, such as we have a team, part of a team in Argentina, we have part of a team in Romania, and having them, they're the ones who are zooming into our meetings at that point. But at this stage, with everyone being at home, the opportunity, we can hop on a call whenever anyone's free, and you don't have to, be setting up meeting rooms and pulling people in, and sometimes they can't join the call, and it takes, tech problems. By now, 7 months in, everyone's figured out tech problems, but it is definitely, the opportunity has definitely been to basically grow our own network internally. I think everyone knows is a big company, and we know it's a big company working there, but I think being designers, and being on specific products, you tend to fall into the rhythm of just working with the people you work with and your team. But something that COVID has provided, the situation with COVID has provided, is allowing us to connect with other designers across the company, which typically you're in different time zones, and it's hard to we weren't doing a lot of calls. It's more so you send a couple of emails or Slack messages. But now I think the luxury of everyone being at home and being in the same situation, we've been able to connect with all over the world, so many different people that we knew who worked there, just didn't know each other. You just kind of see the names in Slack. I think it's allowed people to kind of settle in and discover other talents across the company, and that's been great. I think from a design perspective, being on sports and all the sports teams kind of solving the same problem, it's really helped connect and realize, oh, you guys are doing the same thing we're doing, but you're doing it a week ahead of us. Let's see if we can join forces and try to solve that. And it's also cool to see how teams are set up in different environments. Like, we got teams out in Orlando and California and Montreal, and being able to share what we're doing and see what they're doing, it just kind of keeps that designer inspiration kind of clock ticking and keeps everyone engaged. And that's been something that I think, it's you don't get that luxury in the office. So definitely a win there, I think.
Yeah, that's such an interesting example. Yeah. Thank you. What about at Ensemble? What's been happening there, challenges and opportunities that you've seen that you could add to this?
I think a lot like Amrit was talking about, we have 3 offices, Vancouver being our head office, and then we have one in London, and then we have a third in Romania. Most of our people are here in Vancouver. I'd probably say about 160 are here in Vancouver, and then 60 are split amongst the other 2 offices. And so the biggest challenge has, in essence, been the movement to an at-home environment. We have folks that we build apps for TVs and consoles and a variety of devices. And so it's tough, asking somebody to take 3 TVs home to like test an app or to, deploy an application on those devices. And so figuring out a way that we can, we have probably 2 to 3 people in the office who need to be there. And so figuring out how to best work in that sort of environment, and the importance of being available online and being, like everyone here, our Zoom usage has probably gone through the roof. There's a lot. I don't even think I turn Zoom off all day. It's just on, and people come in and out of my Zoom room and my Slack channels. And, I think that's probably been the biggest thing. I also get a little bit of anxiety every time I hear that Slack notification. And so I've had to change that noise because that's been a challenge. But other than that, it's, I think Sam mentioned it, the isolation has been difficult for some people. And so checking in with folks all the time, I've got a ton of different people that I work with across different teams. And so making time to make sure that I'm available to, host those regular meetings and, just to check in. And even if it's not about work, just keep those lines of communication open, because I think everyone's had to deal with this differently, and the isolation has affected everyone differently. And so I would say that's probably our biggest challenge thus far. Onboarding, I think Jin spoke a bit about onboarding new folks during the pandemic, and that's been a challenge as well. Ensemble's it's a privately held company. It's kind of like, it's a lot like a family. And so the culture has been lost a bit in this the segregation. And so making sure folks feel like they fit in and can kind of, join into, even some of these digital clubs and activities that are going on, and then pushing folks towards that. That's been a challenge. Not everyone's up for it. Not everyone wants to, watch a movie with everyone else on Zoom. So it's just finding different ways to make sure that folks feel welcome and that they belong and are part of the team.
Great, thank you. Let's hear now a little bit of the story for those who might be looking for work in the design and tech fields. So, Jen, what roles and positions are you seeing are in demand in the industry you're in right now?
Sorry. There are, like I see on the technical side, I think it's a high demand for technical positions, like someone who understands both hardware and software. I think one of the critical thing is to not just how good you are of existing technology, but like how fast you can learn new programs and things like that, and problem solving skills on what we deal with a lot of like specialty product, and every project is different. So solving, rely on past knowledge, but solving problem is very crucial. On the also, like I'm in charge of marketing and product development, so that has to do with like design skills in marketing. I think digital marketing is going to be in high demand, especially after the pandemic. Like everybody rely on so much online now. And then I think moving towards next year, more business going to have to promote their to their customers, get in front of their customers. So like online marketing, digital marketing is going to be in high demand for us as well, and then in our industry in general.
Thank you. Things that we might not necessarily think of that are changing so much, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Zaheen, what are the hiring trends looking like for you, and onwards to 2021? What sort of trends do you think you might be seeing?
We're continuing to grow. Growth is definitely on the map. I think if you look around, even just in the technical industry in Vancouver, there's quite a few companies that are hiring, and not just a small number of folks, a significant number of folks. So I see growth as being a part of that, regardless of what happens here. For us, a big part of my role was travel. I would be on customer sites a lot, meeting with folks in different parts of the world a lot. So that's obviously completely halted. It's been interesting in that way. I would say it's been challenging to get new business, but holding on to current business and growth within our current accounts and our current customers has been going on and ongoing, and it's been good for us for sure. The return of things like sports and has been very helpful for us as well. And then there's other major things happening. There's the release of multiple new video game consoles. There's a large American election. Those are all things that have impacted us in a positive way at Ensemble. And so I see growth in both technical and non-technical positions continuing to happen, at least for the next 6 to 8 months for us.
You heard it, people. Go there. Okay. Good to hear. Good to hear that it's healthy. Yeah. What about to Sam? So tell us, how can job seekers connect with employers now? LinkedIn, virtual job fairs, what can you share?
Yeah, I think most recently, some of the trends that I've seen are just plethora of online virtual career fairs. Like there seems to be one popping up every week, every other week that we're being invited to, and we can only have the time to attend as many as we possibly can. But I implore all students and new graduates alike to sign up. I'm sure that they're free of charge, or even if it's a nominal fee to attend. There's a lot of employers that are participating just for an opportunity to get a chance to mingle with students. I believe that a lot of the platforms have shifted to being able to have one-on-one dialogues with students where you really get a chance to ask your questions in a small group setting with someone who's in the industry, perhaps of a company that is hiring. If you don't have the opportunities or time to attend job fairs, then I think certainly reaching out to warm contacts. If you have friends who have done work-term placements at certain employers and who know that those organizations are hiring, I know that a lot of companies have employee referral programs. So getting a warm connection to recruiters or specific members in the design team just to say hello, to have, again, one of those informational coffee chats or a quick discovery call or discussion are really great ways to get some insights into the industry, into the hiring needs of that particular company, or just to learn a little bit more about that profession in general. And I know that not everyone will respond to LinkedIn requests, but sometimes that's also a great way to build connections as well, is to send a quick note to someone, a tailored message saying like, hey, I'm Sam, I'm really interested in the design industry and what your company stands for and what they have to offer, would love to connect, and if I could pick your brain. And just a simple message like that, even if the person responds or doesn't, you've kind of done your due diligence and have reached out and done proactive efforts there.
Thank you. And yeah, speaking of job fairs and virtual fairs, we're having our a fair that's being co-hosted between UBC, UVEC, and ourselves actually on next week. Registration is now open. You guys can go and see our website, sfu.ca/career, and you can learn all about that. I think we have almost 200 organizations now attending. It's just huge, and it's this opportunity that we haven't had before now that it's virtual. So students can do that next week. Yeah. Amrit, can you add to that, job seekers utilizing tools like LinkedIn or virtual fairs, anything else? How can people connect right now?
Yeah, no, I think it's funny that you mentioned the through SFU. I was going to mention like looking through SFU. I think that's a great way to get that information and staying in sync with the career support and emails that come through that give you all that information. I think that's definitely a good one at this point. Yes, I mean, to echo what Sam said, I think it's there are, like, EA I know is held some virtual job fairs in the past as well, and they've done in-person ones when COVID wasn't a thing. But at this point in time, I think it's about, I think, kind of staying on top of it, because they sometimes communication, you miss it or whatever, but it is kind of the warm contacts like you mentioned on LinkedIn. I've personally never had that many people reach out on LinkedIn up until I'd say this year, where a lot of people have taken that step and just, hey, like exactly what you said, Sam, which was, hey, I'm interested in what you do and I'm just looking to learn. And I think it's been wonderful for me to kind of connect with people that way. And even if it's a short kind of Zoom chat that we've had, or I've been able to share kind of what the industry is about. It's a little bit more information, and I think, yeah, it's not you might not get the response, but you've done your kind of step, and you've gone out and been brave and asked. I think that's all you can do it. But I think at this point in time, a lot more people do have a little bit more time, and I personally, I know, like, have seeing my notification pop up like, hey, there's someone on LinkedIn who sent you a message. It's a lot more easier for me now, being at home, being at the computer, to kind of just respond back and just give them, like, thanks for reaching out, love to share what I can and see where we can go. So I think definitely having that set up, but also I think coming in with a bit more focus, right? I think putting that empathy, talking about design terms, but putting the empathy on the person you're talking to. They might be busy, so if you can make it, focus it as for yourself, but also for the person you're talking to, and really tailor it to the person you're reaching out to make sure that they can, easily look at it and be able to respond and give you what you need, but also they find value out of it as well. I think that it goes a little bit goes a long way, basically. But that's definitely been a LinkedIn. I mean, for us, our team, we've our design director has been very active on LinkedIn over the last couple of years to kind of use that as a great pool just to connect and build that. Sometimes we're not hiring actively, but positions pop up and teams, like our team expands, and you've connected with someone who's still seeking on LinkedIn, and we've reached out and we've hired people that way as well. So I think it's more so, yeah, to Sam's point, build the connection, and it might not be immediate, next week you're going to get hired, but it's definitely down the road, it helps you, and it's something that you might even see that person post things, or that person you've connected with, share out opportunities that coming down the road. So it's definitely a good source there for sure.
Really nice. And thanks again going to all of you who are open to not only sharing your time and stories tonight, but have said that you're open to connecting on LinkedIn with students. And it's a huge gift. Not everybody is able to or that interested always in mentoring. And so it's a beautiful role, and thank you for that. Yeah. We've heard some advice from each of you kind of along the way. Anything else you might like to add that maybe you didn't get a chance to add in terms of how new graduates, recent alum, and students might be able to find some nice success for themselves? Any more advice to share? I'm leaving it open.
I would say also try to existing network, or maybe the network, like friends of yours or alumni or someone who's senior that already is working for a company that you'd like to work for. Ask for some sort of inside recommendation. It's actually a lot helpful. I know, I mean, personally, I took advantage of that when I fresh graduated from CIAT, and also I was also helping other CIAT students trying to recommend if the company is hiring, and so I think those are very helpful. Like people of.
Great. Anyone else?
I guess just speaking from personal experiences, reflecting back to my own recent graduate days, once I completed my degree at SFU, I remember actively reaching out to my warm contacts, friends from extracurricular student organizations, where if they worked in the high-tech sector, I said, hey, is there any chance you could connect me with the HR person or recruiter for X company, and allowing me the chance to introduce myself and potentially arrange a coffee chat. So I remember, taking that step was nerve-wracking, and definitely there were some folks that didn't quite have the time to sit down and chat with me, but I was able to reach out to organizations like Galvanize, Vision Critical, and was able to have a half-hour chat with some of the vice president of HR, which was fantastic for me as a new grad to have that opportunity, and I wouldn't have otherwise without a good word from a friend. So really leveraging your own networks and your friends within your undergraduate experience is certainly helpful. And I know that we're all geared to, trying to be self-starters, trying to be independent, but sometimes it really does help you a lot and give you a leg up if you just ask for that help.
It's true. You can always ask. Yeah. And try not to take it too personally if people can't or don't offer right away. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Well, we're gonna maybe take a few questions now from our audience. So I've been filtered a couple already from my lovely co-moderators. So I'm going to bring this one back to you, Zaheen, actually. So you spoke earlier about soft skills and the importance of soft skills. So this question is about rating soft skills compared to technical or hard skills when it comes to hiring. So it's complicated, I guess, because, most jobs do need both, but you kind of ask for, if you're hiring for communications, you need communications. If you're hiring for software, you need, but maybe you can help us with that. rate that, what you're looking for?
Sure. I think from a designer's perspective, we're looking for working in, working in a consultancy is probably a little bit different than working in, an EA or a safe software, in that we are effectively always selling our skills and our abilities to new customers and clients. And so for us, I slightly weigh the soft skills, the communication skills higher than I do the technical skills. You can always become better with Photoshop, Illustrator, XD, Sketch, whatever your tool of choice might be. And the more time you spend with those, the better you get. Having those soft skills it's a little bit more challenging to develop. And it's not only challenging, but it takes a little bit of bravery. It takes a little bit of, putting yourself out there to become better at presenting or talking to your designs or talking to your ideas. And so having those be a little bit more polished early on goes a long way and helps. So I would put a little bit more weight on the soft skills than I do on the technical skills.
Good to know. Yeah. Here's one I'm going to give to Jin. So what are the most important things to include in your portfolio?
If I'm speaking for from a designer perspective, I think especially from an employer perspective, when I look at portfolios from like design students, I like to see like what kind of roles they have put in. So sometimes I know often like students work in teams of projects, and so I always ask like what was their role involved in that particular project. So it's important to include that. And then I think listing out the tools and then showcase the process, the thinking process is very important. I think employers are not only just looking for how good a designer you are, because obviously for just graduate design students, your work experience is limited, but it's about how your thinking process. Do you like what is kind of out of the box? What kind of research have you done to deliver what you have come up with? And that entire process is important to show in your portfolio. I think through that, I usually when during interviews I also ask that kind of question, and through that process I can see the soft skills, like presentation skills and your thinking process and how you collaborate with your teammates. Those things come out from interviews. I think it's important to show that or prepare that for your portfolio.
Great. Thank you. I have one here for Amrit. So are the panelists working with colleagues in a more global context now? Your colleagues are working in a more global context now. Can you see what's going to happen? Can you look in the future? What might happen when we're called back? What might remain and what might happen to those remote jobs?
Yeah, I think it's something that our teams are kind of going through right now. Being that, for example, sports, we were on a cyclical cycle. So every year there'll be, as you might know, sports game from EA that goes out, and that's kind of you're already in a condensed time frame. But I think with how we've been set up over the last little bit and working remotely, it's been great having teams in different time zones, which has been pretty cool to have. You have support people kind of get a head start in the morning before we even get going, and then we can catch up with them and touch base. I think going into the future, I see it continuing. I think it's something that we've hired designers from out of Vancouver, so we've got members of our team who are in from Montreal, and there's I believe from the States as well. So it's kind of we've never had that. I think we wouldn't have that luxury when we're in the office. So I think I would see it continue to grow in that fashion, that we do have team members who are not situated in Vancouver, but I think all the learnings we're getting from this current work from home situation and kind of adapting to that, we can see that, I can see that being a thing that, especially for EA with such large teams, growing in the future, and our teams getting bigger and making it easier to actually acquire good talent globally. I think having to have people relocate and be in a fixed location all the time, it's hard to convince sometimes the best talent, and having them giving them the luxury of staying where they are and still being able to contribute and work with great teams. I think I can see it being in the long run for sure. I think it's going to change the way we build and ship games going forward. Whether that's how long that takes, I think is still going to be a discovery process, but it could be it's gonna be good. I think it's exciting to be part of it and kind of be in the forefront of like discovering all that as we go into next year and beyond.
Thank you. Thanks. What advice would you give to someone who wants to venture into tech but does not have any experience? I'm open on this one.
I can give it a shot. I think, networking is a big thing. I think technology is so large. We work in so many different facets, and there's so many different areas within technology that there's a lot of different things you want to do. Technology is just so broad. You can have no technical skills and work in technology. I think that's possible. It all depends on what you want to do. You need to have technical skills to be a developer or to work in any of those sorts of instances and environments. And so I think that's important to keep in mind. But once you get into an organization, a large organization, it's not all that difficult to move around and to try different things and to find yourself, perhaps going in as a developer and ending up as a program manager or something along those lines. And so I would say first narrowing from just technology to an area specifically within technology that you want to go after. And then there are, short-term courses that allow for you to pick up the skills necessary. With software development cycles, there's, Scrum Masters and project managers, and those are in high demand. And being a good program manager or project manager doesn't necessarily require you to be all that technical, but it requires the organizational, the communication, all of those skills that, a lot of people already have, and then you understand the technology as you get moving and as you get into it. We've hired some project managers that have come from, we have one who's come from a policing background. Actually, he worked at the RCMP, and he worked in operations there, and he didn't have a ton of technical background, but now he's managing one of our biggest programs, and so there are opportunities there.
It is. It's so interesting. People can come from all different directions to work in it, but it's true. Tech is huge, so it's finding your place in that. Yeah. Here's one we're swinging to UX specifically. So as a UX designer, what type of work is the most necessary to include in my resume or portfolio? Jen, you spoke already about portfolio. Is there anything more that you could add to that one? So looking for really necessary stuff to include.
If it is UX UI related, I would definitely emphasize on the design process. I feel like UX and UI is all about the research, the process, the prototyping, the testing, more than anything. And then just looking at it, it's, UX UI is not necessarily just limited to web design and mobile interface. I think even in CIAT, like when I was in school, which is almost 10 years ago, is already not bounded by that. And I think it would be nice to showcase more of your out of the box thinking, like all this futuristic conceptuals you have. I think as an employer, I always like to look for the passion coming from this young, graduate designer. So what kind of new ideas that or new energy he can bring to the company. And I think I always prefer that than, like someone who shows more like just a solid technical skill.
Thank you. What about for those who hire, tips to succeed in a design interview?
I can chime in for this one. So I actually did a little bit of homework in advance of this panel to collect some feedback from some of our hiring managers at SAFE who specifically recruit out of the SFU Interactive Technology program. So specific, I guess, soft skills that stand out to our front-end digital marketing and cloud development groups really emphasize verbal communication and presentation. So really how, speaking to what Jin had already mentioned, right? Being able to pitch your design concepts or explain why you built something a certain way has really been kind of the differentiator in an interviewing process when selecting or shortlisting a candidate for an offer, whether that be for an intern position or a full-time role. Having someone who's really clearly able to understand the full scope of an idea and take the interviewing panel from point A to point B, C, D, E in an understandable, succinct order, I would say is really important. One of the challenges, of course, with virtual interviews is that, I think all of us are human beings. We have a limited attention span. So really, with virtual meetings, there is an emphasis on being clear and concise with your communications and ultimately learning when to pause and ask, does that answer your question, or would you like me to elaborate further? Because we all become a little bit engrossed in filling that silence or that void in an online call, and we may keep the conversation going and ultimately eating through a lot of that time. So I think that that's one of the soft skills aspects that our hiring managers have highlighted has been really important, having that emotional intelligence to check in and read your audience's body language virtually. With respect to technical, I think a lot of the areas the team highlighted was, outlining, like Jin said again, outlining your specific role within a project, right? How large was the team that you worked with? What were your roles and responsibilities? And again, like what was that decision-making process? Dialing back to specific and clear examples of what you've done in an academic setting or in a professional setting, whether you've had previous co-op experience or internships, has been really essential in helping our team flesh out and evaluate, whether students or new graduates alike have truly built out that foundational knowledge that's needed for some positions.
Thank you. Here's one that I spend a lot of time on as a career educator, and that is talking to students about that transition from school to work and how to make the most of what you learned and apply it. So this question is about how might a student quickly transition from being a student to work, so maybe that identity shift, and what's the best way to apply knowledge that you learned in university. So maybe Amrit, can you speak about either your own personal experience of making that transition or offer advice?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first part there you mentioned of the transition and kind of going into a bit more professional and being in that work environment. I think the very first thing that comes to mind is design imposter syndrome, or just in general. I think everyone goes through that. It's real. It's something that you kind of question if you're good at what you do, and how, like, are you in the right spot, or are you capable of doing what's asked? I think kind of going through that little journey of, you've obviously made it this far, the team's hired you and you've been given the opportunity to be in this position. So I think taking that into kind of to kind of settle your nerves at the beginning. But I think the transitions very much so keeping that the approach that we have in school, right? The approach of you're learning, you're there to learn. I think taking that opportunity at work to do the same thing, I don't think it changes much. I think it's more so being proactive, reaching out, communicating, getting as much information as you can. I think all those things that we do, that we have done in classes and for projects for in school, I think you can easily transfer that, and bringing that same kind of energy. I think it's often, I think myself going from working as doing my co-op and then going back to school and then actually working while I ended up going back to EA while I was still completing my degree, and having just that transition of like, a couple of days a week I'm in class and then the rest of the week I'm sitting in office. I think that mental shift of, hey, there's a lot of overlap here. I'm in class, I'm absorbing and do the same thing you're doing in your workplace. Absorb, listen to people, learn, ask questions, and you can definitely take that. That goes a long way because you're kind of building that understanding of how the workplace operates. And I think we do a lot of that in school. It's just accelerated. You do it in 12 weeks versus in workplace, you have to do it, over an extended period of time. But I think use that time in the early stages to definitely absorb as much as you can, and then kind of as you transition and go do more things. I think it helps you, everything you do at the beginning. But I think the key is just not to don't worry if it doesn't come right away. I think that's the biggest, even for us. I know Zaheen mentioned onboarding. I think we've had people join. We've had co-op from SFU join our own team. I think the biggest piece that I try to work is it takes time. I think everyone adjusts in their own pace, but work with the team, work with your manager to kind of find that pacing for yourself. And especially with work from home situation, it's something Samantha and Jen mentioned, everyone mentioned, like it will kind of unfold. You just have to take the proactive approach and stay ahead of the game a little bit and just keep yourself rolling. I think that's usually you can it's hard to make that adjustment, but doing mini retros at the end of the week. What did you do? What did you enjoy doing this week? What could you do better? I think kind of keeping yourself engaged and always reflecting could be useful.
Yeah, I mean, you can apply all your good skills you've learned as a student.
Absolutely.
And then being that good listener of learning culture and learning the space you're in, and imposter syndrome's real, and everyone has it at all different times in their life. Yeah. And so being a bit of kindness with that, right? Like
yeah, totally. And I think everything we do in our classes and everything you've learned over, it's you got to remember it's 4, 5, 6 years of worth of work, maybe even longer for some people, that you're not going to be able to use all of it in day one. It's going to come out over time, but it's a matter of trusting that you have learned stuff. And I think that's you forget what you did year one, but maybe that basic thing that you learned in year 1, year 2, year 3 is actually what you need to kind of go back to and then bring out of yourself in your early days of your job. And then it helps you build it up. Look for small wins and keep that momentum going. But yeah, to your point, it's something that just gotta stay online and then keep trucking along, and you end up finding that helps you in the long run for sure.
Yeah, and there might be some courses that you took that have way more weight for you in the outside world
For sure.
than others, and they might not have been your favorites,
Totally.
but they turn out to have a really applicable technology that you learned, or a method or a model or something that comes into play. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I see. Jen, have you unmuted to add to this?
Yeah, I wanted to add something because it kind of reminded me something that it's a combination of drawing my own personal experience when I first graduated, start working full time, and also seeing some of the co-op or new grads are working from us. I think one thing is the time management. Like in school, I think for many years you used to having class sometimes in the morning or afternoon, but then most of the company you work during 9 to 5, this kind of hour range. And I think as a new grad, it's really important just to show the very basic time management skills, like if we're working remote, like being in the meeting on time, or even like a few minutes earlier, being prepared, or if you got assigned a task, like be on time, like finish that, or be very communicative if you need more time or you're running behind, all that. Those actually shows a lot, because everybody, for a new member of a company, especially new grads, the colleagues are very, other people are always very willing to help. But I think these kind of small things in terms of time management really leave a really good impression, and then a good habit to start grow and pay attention to. It pays a long way. It goes a long way for your career development. And no matter, every time, I think, no matter if I'm joining a new company, I think like show up to the office a half an hour early. Like now remotely, like if you can show up the meeting on time or 5 minutes early, it's always very good. Yeah, no matter which company you work for, I think.
Thank you for that. And thank you for the time management reminder. It's 10 to 6, and we did give ourselves an hour and a half for our questions, and there's been lots of questions. So thank you. Maybe just a couple more. I know, Zaheen, we want to get you off Zoom that's been on for 24 hours. We let you go soon. But really good questions here. A couple more coming in. This is specific to building a design community. So when it comes to professional associations that somebody might want to belong to, and learning how to negotiate a salary when it comes to doing freelance or design work, where might someone go? I'm putting it open.
I can add, I know that there is a Vancouver UX organization on LinkedIn. So, and then there's also a Facebook group for CET students. I see that a lot of active posts for alumni who are already very high up in certain organizations. If they're hiring, they post somewhere there. And then I usually I see like some student post a question. There's always someone in that community trying to help. I also know that there are some meetup groups on the app, like Meetup in Vancouver, related to design in general, or UX design, or architectural design, marketing. There's many different groups. I think those are very helpful. These days, there's online events. They're all free to attend. So those are really good resources.
Great, that's a lot. Thank you. This is our last one for tonight. So this is about building meaningful connections and connecting with somebody who might be willing to be a mentor. Does anyone have a story that they could share about connecting with in mentorship and making meaningful connections, and especially now that it's in online again?
I can take a stab at this question, although I think my answer may be a little bit geared in, I guess, my own background with within business, but I'm sure that there are comparable mentorship opportunities and programs, perhaps, you know, co-facilitated by SFU, or ones that students and alumni like the ones on the call today could easily research in Google. But I know for myself, like having been an SFU mentee and currently mentor to an undergraduate business student at SFU, it's, you know, really been a great opportunity to, you know, kind of pay things forward and provide, you know, now my insights as an industry HR high-tech member to someone who's looking to break out into a similar role upon graduation, or looking to land their first co-op role. I think that mentee-mentor relationships, if you're ever able to participate in them and sign up for one, whether there's a nominal fee or if they're free of charge, they are certainly worth it if you're paired with someone who can really be not only a mentor, but what I've learned to describe as a sponsor of you, and not from a financial or monetary sense, but someone who's really able to shout your name from the rafters after having built a relationship with you, understanding what your career goals are, understanding a little bit about your personality and character traits, that they could then go to bat for you when it comes to, again, making those warm connections. I think Jen referenced nowadays, you know, for recruiters like myself, there's lots of applications that do come through, and sometimes there's just so much to look at, so much to consider for an application that you don't know where to begin. And sometimes, you know, what might put someone near the top of the stack is if someone internally has said, hey, like I know Deanne and she's fantastic and we've worked together in the past, and I think that, you know, you should take a second look here. And that's, you know, one of the great starting places for myself as a recruiter to take a look at, to build those warm contacts and connections. And it's kind of a win-win all around, not only for the employee that referred that person, but for the company who has someone who's tried and trusted to bring on board.
Thank you. That's great. I actually have one more. I lied. This one, I guess, is really popular, and so we should answer it. Let's answer it. We still have a few minutes, please. So, can any of the panelists provide advice to students who didn't complete a co-op work term, and what might help them to stand out when applying for jobs? And for somebody, again, who it might be really highly unlikely that they could get into co-op or complete it, how can they gain experience now?
I can speak to a little bit about something that I wish when I was a student and looking for jobs and kind of in there. I think there's a really good designer. He's head of design at Envision right now, called Stephen Gates. I know some of you might have heard of him, maybe not, but he has this really good podcast where I've only, the couple that I've listened to, talks about brand. And I think it's important for designers, those who are on the call and stuff. But I think the summary of it is know your brand. And then he talks about building a brand, and not from a sense of, you know, what we typically think of brands as logos and names and you know, color palettes and all that. It's more about what you bring. And I think that anyone can put together. I think whether you're a student, whether you've done co-op or you haven't done co-op, I think you as a brand is your what you bring to the table, your thinking, your past experiences, your kind of background, your passion, what you're interested in. Like, I think that is what encompasses someone's brand. And I think anyone can work on that. Anyone can put that together. And I think that's a lot of the messages that the messaging that I like to share, at least for people that I know and who are still students who have reached out. It's no, you know, build that package about yourself. And I think that comes from, it might be that you might not have any experience. I think that's the case for a lot of students. It's hard to get that experience. What are you doing to kind of get that, you know, build your skills? It might be that you're doing online class, even if it's you're playing somewhere, you've taken apart their, you know, the game, the app, their website, and you've kind of redesigned. Like, it's just taking initiative, and I think it's showing your level of interest and your passion to discover your own skills, show off your skills, and if anything, just more so your desire to get better. And I think that all, putting all that together in some form, whether that's your portfolio or it's just, you know, a piece on your resume, or connecting with someone on LinkedIn and sharing your story, I think that goes a long way. And I think the co-op is definitely a benefit and a bonus, and it has huge impact, but doesn't mean you can't, you know, still show off what you're about. And I think how discovering more about yourself and making that super clear, so when someone, you know, does see your work or hears your name, they know exactly what you're about. I think that is that goes on, and you're always building on your brand. Think of it, you start now as a student, you're building on it wherever you work. I know Zaheen mentioned early on, you guys had hired people who had gone on to other places. I think that, like, the brand is set, and you guys help them establish it, and they develop it as you go, and it grows with you. And I think that might be something to think about for those who haven't had the opportunity to do co-op.
You're so right. And it just, it grows from there. If you can fit into your life a bit of volunteering, make it strategic, do something that can really help you grow. Do a bit of, part-time work, join a club, lots of different ways that you can
Sure.
continue to grow and experience and explore that complements your studies. Yeah.
Totally. It's the what it's more so, I think, for in some cases you employers might be looking for the initiatives that you're taking versus outcomes, right? The end result might not always be what you desire, but you took a huge step and tried something, and that's what you're bringing the learnings that you got out of that, and that often can go a long way.
I think to that point, Amrit, as well, I think the attention to detail, like, you talk about portfolios and we talk about resumes, your resume or your application or whatever is submitted is in fact ends up being your first impression.
Yeah.
And so ensuring that things are buttoned up, that you don't have, mistakes that you typically, even just minor spelling mistakes and things like that. Sure. Having the ability, it doesn't matter what kind of project it is, but I think Jen alluded to showing the way you think, and you can do that in a portfolio, whether it be with a school project, whether it be with a side project, whatever it might be. But this is the end result, but more importantly, this is how I got to this end result. This is what I did. Yeah. These are the different things that I thought about. And this is the journey that I took to get there. And you can, that initiative, that time, it's not easy. It's not a small amount of work, but you need to do it to be able to show and to, set yourself apart from other candidates, because Samantha said it herself that I get a ton of applications. I get, a lot of different resumes coming through, and, we're not a large company that we don't have an established HR department. And so they just get filtered to the right areas within the organization, and then it's our responsibility. And so if I have 10, the initial impression that one makes and a portfolio makes goes a long way to being at the top of that pile to bring in to talk to. And so I think it's really important, and echoes the attention to detail for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you again to our audience for great questions. I am seeing a few other questions that I think got answered in sort of different sections. So there's so much good stuff here. We'll post it on our YouTube, and you can always take a listen again. But for now, I think we're going to say goodbye and say thank you so much to all of you for your time tonight. And glad to hear that you are good where you are, given the circumstances. So yeah, and the panelists have said that they're willing to connect on LinkedIn, so that is wonderful for our listeners. And thanks again to our partners. I'm representing Career and Volunteer Services. There's Work Integrated Learning and BD and Alumni, and we all work together to put these on. So I think we'll be back in the new year again with some more of these. But yes, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye to our audience.